The holographic display in Earth's United Defense Council chamber cast an eerie blue glow across the faces of humanity's leaders. Admiral Elena Martinez stood rigid, her weathered hands clasped behind her back as she watched the alien delegation materialize before them. The Proximan ambassador, a towering figure with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that sparked with neural interfaces, stepped forward. Earth has been selected, the ambassador announced, each word precisely measured. Your world will participate in the Grand Galactic Tournament. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Earth had only joined the galactic community 8 months ago, after their first faster-than-light ship accidentally stumbled into a trade route. Most worlds waited centuries before receiving such an invitation. There must be some mistake, Admiral Martinez said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. We haven't even established proper diplomatic channels yet. The Proximan's neural interfaces flickered with what might have been amusement. The selection AI is absolute. It has chosen Earth's champion, and according to the ancient accords, you must comply. The Admiral's blood ran cold. Earth's military had been preparing for this possibility, even if they thought it decades away. They had their best soldiers ready, enhanced with the limited cybernetics they'd reversed-engineered from crashed alien vessels. Very well, Martinez said. I'll alert our chosen. That won't be necessary, the ambassador interrupted. The selection AI has already made its choice. The holographic display shifted, showing a woman in her mid-30s wearing worn hiking boots and cargo pants, teaching a group of students how to build a shelter in the wilderness. Maya Rodriguez, the ambassador announced. Age 34. Occupation, wilderness survival instructor. The chamber exploded in protest. General Wong slammed his fist on the table. This is absurd. We have elite soldiers, special forces operators, trained. The ambassador raised a hand, silencing the room. The selection AI's choice is final. It sees what you cannot. 12 hours later, Maya Rodriguez stood at the edge of a cliff in the Canadian Rockies, watching her students practice fire-starting techniques. The whir of approaching aircraft made her look up, squinting against the sun as 3 sleek government vehicles descended from the clouds. She didn't seem surprised when they landed, nor when suited agents approached through the snow. She simply turned to her assistant instructor and said, "Take over the class, Jake. Looks like that thing we talked about is happening." The lead agent, a woman with close-cropped gray hair, looked at Maya's simple outdoor gear with poorly concealed concern. Ms. Rodriguez, you've been chosen to represent Earth in the galaxy's most prestigious combat tournament. We need you to come with us immediately. Maya nodded, reaching down to grab her well-worn backpack. Been expecting this since first contact. The old stories all pointed to something like this happening. The agent blinked in surprise. The old stories? My grandmother was a curandera in New Mexico, Maya explained, checking her gear with practiced efficiency. She used to tell me stories about the stars, about tests that would come. Thought they were just legends until I saw that alien ship on the news. As they boarded the aircraft, the agent tried to hand Maya a tablet showing her opponents. Beings of pure energy, cybernetic warriors who could bend reality, hive-mind collectives that could predict every move before it happened. Maya glanced at it briefly before turning her attention to the view outside. Technology isn't everything, she said quietly. Nature's been trying to kill us since we first walked upright, and we're still here. These beings from advanced civilizations, they've forgotten what it means to survive. The agent frowned. Ms. Rodriguez, you'll be facing the most dangerous warriors in the known galaxy. Beings that can manipulate quantum fields with a thought. How can you be so calm? Maya smiled, her eyes still fixed on the wilderness below. You ever been stuck in the backcountry during a flash flood? Or had to outsmart a grizzly bear protecting her cubs? Had to keep a group of scared tourists alive during a freak blizzard? She patted the worn survival knife at her belt. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective. Besides, humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. What is it then? We never stopped having to survive, Maya said. Every other species out there evolved past their challenges, built technology to solve their problems. But Earth? Earth never stopped trying to kill us. And that means we never stopped learning how to live. As the aircraft ascended towards the waiting orbital station, Maya began sorting through her pack, checking her basic tools and survival gear. The agent watched in disbelief as Earth's champion prepared to face the galaxy's greatest warriors armed with nothing more than rope, flint, and a knowledge born from humanity's endless struggle against their unforgiving world. Across the galaxy, the alien champions were already celebrating their assured victory. They had no idea they were about to face something far more dangerous than advanced technology, a human who had never forgotten the old ways, who understood that survival wasn't about power, but adaptation. The tournament was about to remind the galaxy why Earth was classified as a death world, and why its inhabitants had survived everything their harsh planet had thrown at them for millions of years. The tournament arena station hung in space like a massive crystal lotus, its petals stretching for miles in every direction. Maya stood at a viewport in her preparation chamber, wearing the same cargo pants and moisture-wicking shirt she used for desert survival training. Behind her, a team of Earth's military specialists argued about her refusal to wear the powered armor they'd brought. "The Quantum Collective will tear you apart," Colonel Richards insisted, holding up a sleek combat suit. "They exist in 11 dimensions simultaneously. You need protection." Maya adjusted her bootlaces, making sure they were double-knotted. "Can't move properly in that thing. Besides, sometimes the best armor is being able to move freely." She checked her pockets: fire starter, paracord, water purification tablets, and her grandmother's turquoise pendant. The same tools she carried every day in the wilderness. The arena's announcement system crackled to life. First trial commencing. Earth Representative Maya Rodriguez versus the Quantum Collective. Please proceed to the combat chamber. As Maya walked through the corridors, alien spectators fell silent. Some pointed, others laughed. She heard whispers in dozens of languages, all carrying the same sentiment: Earth had sent a primitive to die. The combat chamber was a perfect sphere half a kilometer in diameter, its walls shifting with patterns of light and shadow. Maya stood on a small platform near the bottom, feeling the artificial gravity fluctuate slightly beneath her feet. Above her, the Quantum Collective materialized, 3 beings of pure energy that moved like aurora borealis given consciousness. Beginning combat trial, the arena AI announced. Victory condition: incapacitate or force opponent to yield. Lethal force is prohibited. Begin. The Quantum Collective struck immediately, their energy forms splitting into dozens of tendrils that attacked from every direction. Maya dropped and rolled, her movements fluid from years of navigating treacherous terrain. The energy tendrils left scorch marks where they struck. "Primitive evasion will not save you," the collective spoke, their voices harmonizing in a way that made Maya's teeth vibrate. "We exist in dimensions you cannot comprehend." Maya kept moving, her eyes scanning the arena. The collective's energy forms created patterns of light and shadow across the walls. Familiar patterns. Like watching heat waves rise off desert rocks, or seeing sunlight refract through storm clouds. "You know what humans learn first about survival?" Maya called out, ducking another energy tendril. "Observation. Everything has a pattern. Everything has a rhythm." The collective responded by intensifying their attack, their energy forms pulsing with increasing power. But Maya wasn't watching them anymore. She was watching their shadows, the way their light bent around the arena's curved walls. Second lesson, she continued, reaching into her pocket. Energy follows the path of least resistance. She pulled out her water purification tablets, crushing them in her hand. Just like water. The collective surged forward, confident in their victory. Maya threw the crushed tablets into the air, then pulled out her fire starter. One spark was all it took. The chemical reaction was instant, a burst of sodium and iodine that created a cascading reaction in the arena's carefully controlled atmosphere. The quantum collective's energy forms wavered as the chemical reaction disrupted the electromagnetic field they used to maintain cohesion. Their 11-dimensional existence suddenly became a liability as the disruption rippled through every plane they inhabited. Third lesson, Maya said, watching the beings of pure energy struggle to maintain their form. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective. The collective tried to reform, but the chemical reaction had created a localized field that made it impossible for them to maintain stability. One by one, their energy forms condensed into stable but inert patterns, the equivalent of unconsciousness for their species. The arena fell silent. Then, from somewhere in the upper stands, someone started laughing. The sound spread until the entire arena was filled with incredulous laughter and excited chatter. Maya Rodriguez, the primitive human with her primitive tools, had just defeated one of the most advanced species in the galaxy using basic chemistry. In the Earth observation box, Colonel Richards stared at the replay screens in disbelief. How did she know that would work? Admiral Martinez smiled. Because she understands something they don't. On Earth, you either learn to use what you have, or you don't survive. Maya knelt beside the stable energy forms of the quantum collective, studying their patterns with genuine curiosity. You know, she said softly, back on Earth, I teach my students that advanced technology is great, but you shouldn't rely on it. Because when things go wrong, and they always go wrong, you need to understand the basic principles. The fundamentals. The arena medical teams arrived to revive the quantum collective as Maya walked back to her preparation chamber. Alien spectators who had laughed at her entrance now pressed against the safety barriers, trying to get a closer look at the human who had brought down beings of pure energy with nothing more than survival gear. In her chamber, Maya sat down and began checking her supplies, replacing the used water purification tablets with fresh ones. A holoscreen showed her next opponents, the swarm minds of Rigel, a hive consciousness that controlled thousands of combat drones simultaneously. Maya smiled, thinking about the time she'd had to deal with an angry hornet nest while leading a group of climbers to safety. Some problems were universal, whether you were dealing with insects on Earth or alien hive minds in space. Time to show them what else a primitive can do, she whispered, running her thumb over her grandmother's turquoise pendant. In her mind, she could hear the old stories again, passed down through generations of survivors who had learned to thrive in a world that constantly tried to kill them. The environmental chamber of the tournament arena station stretched out before Maya like a nightmare landscape. Crystalline formations jutted from pools of liquid methane, while the purple sky crackled with electromagnetic storms. The temperature readout on her borrowed environmental monitor showed -200 degrees Celsius. The environmental trial begins in 3 minutes, announced the arena AI. Contestants must survive for 6 hours while establishing a sustainable shelter. Environmental suits are prohibited. Each species must rely on their natural adaptations or die. Around her, the other contestants prepared themselves. The crystalline thorians activated their hibernation protocols, their bodies becoming even more mineral-like. The plasma-based ZXTH created protective bubbles of pure energy. The cybernetically enhanced Andromedans engaged their survival systems. Maya pulled out her paracord and knife, studying the terrain with the same careful attention she used when teaching Arctic survival. Just like winter in Minnesota, she muttered, only a bit colder. The starting signal flashed. Immediately, the artificial gravity increased to 3 times Earth normal. Maya heard the crack of breaking crystal, one of the thorians had shattered under the increased pressure. The ZXTH's energy bubbles flickered and compressed. But Maya was already moving, her steps measured and careful. Years of climbing in thin air had taught her how to move efficiently in challenging conditions. She headed toward a cluster of crystalline formations, noting how they refracted the light from the electromagnetic storms. Second elimination, the AI announced as one of the Andromedans collapsed, their cybernetics failing in the extreme cold. 3 contestants remaining. Maya reached the crystal formation and began testing its structure with her knife. The sound rang out like striking a tuning fork, sending vibrations through the ground. She smiled. These weren't just crystals, they were resonating with the electromagnetic storms above. Just like the singing ice in Antarctica, she said to herself, remembering a particularly challenging rescue mission. She began striking specific points of the crystal, creating a harmonic pattern that matched the storm's frequency. The result was immediate. The crystals began to heat up, the electromagnetic energy from the storms being converted into thermal energy through the resonance she'd created. Around her, a small bubble of survivable temperature began to form. Fascinating approach, came a voice, and Maya turned to see the last surviving ZXTH floating nearby, its energy form barely maintained. You understand harmonics? Nature teaches you if you pay attention, Maya replied, continuing to expand her shelter. Everything has a frequency. Everything connects. She gestured to her growing crystal shelter. Want to share? Plenty of room. The ZXTH hesitated, then floated closer. You would share shelter with a competitor? First rule of survival, sometimes cooperation beats competition. Maya adjusted her crystal tapping pattern, expanding the heated area to accommodate her new companion. Besides, I want to learn how your species manipulates energy fields. Reminds me of watching lightning storms in the desert. As they waited out the trial, Maya and the ZXTH traded knowledge. She learned about quantum field manipulation while sharing stories about predicting weather patterns from animal behavior. The ZXTH learned about using natural materials for shelter while explaining how their consciousness interacted with electromagnetic fields. Your species is puzzling, the ZXTH said as the 4th hour began. You have no natural defenses, no evolutionary advantages. Yet you treat deadly environments as puzzles to be solved rather than threats to be feared. Maya thought about that while adjusting their shelter's resonance to match a particularly violent storm surge. Maybe that is our advantage. We never evolved past our challenges. Earth keeps trying to kill us, so we keep learning new ways to live. The final hour of the trial brought the greatest challenge. The atmospheric pressure began to fluctuate wildly, threatening to tear their shelter apart. Maya watched the crystal harmonics shift, making rapid adjustments with her knife. The ZXTH contributed its understanding of energy fields, helping to stabilize the structure. Trial complete, the AI announced. 2 survivors. Unprecedented cooperation noted and recorded. As they emerged from their shelter, Maya saw the amazement on the faces of the alien spectators. She had not only survived but had turned one of the deadliest environments ever created into a learning opportunity. The ZXTH hovered beside her, its energy patterns suggesting deep thought. We have existed for 1,000,000 years, it said finally. In all that time, we sought to transcend our environment, to evolve beyond physical limitations. But you embraced the challenge. You learned from it. Maya pulled out her grandmother's pendant, its turquoise still warm from the crystal harmonics. My grandmother used to say that the universe isn't our enemy, it's our teacher. We just have to be willing to learn. As they walked back to the preparation chambers, news of the unusual alliance between the primitive human and the energy being spread through the station. The gambling odds for the final trials shifted dramatically. The galaxy was beginning to understand that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their physical capabilities. It was their endless capacity to adapt, to learn, and to turn adversity into advantage. In her chamber, Maya began preparing for the neural challenges that would come next. She ran her fingers over her knife's worn handle, thinking about all the lessons Earth had taught her. The galaxy thought they were testing humanity's limits. They were about to discover that humans had no limits, only opportunities to learn and grow stronger. The neural chamber was a perfect white sphere, its surface rippling like liquid mercury. Maya stood at the entrance, watching the other contestants emerge from their trials. Some crawled out, their minds barely intact. Others had to be carried. The ZXTH, her ally from the environmental trials, hovered nearby, its energy form flickering with concern. The neural challenges break even the strongest minds, it warned. They take your worst fears and make them real. Many champions have withdrawn rather than face them. Maya touched her grandmother's pendant, remembering the old woman's words about fear. Fear isn't the enemy, she murmured. It's a teacher, if you're willing to listen. The chamber door opened, revealing a swirling void of white mist. Maya stepped inside without hesitation. The door sealed behind her with a soft hiss, and the world dissolved. She found herself back on Earth, in the Colorado Rockies. But something was wrong. The sky was blood red, and the forests were burning. In the distance, she could see massive alien ships descending through the clouds, their weapons turning the landscape to ash. Neural simulation beginning, the AI's voice echoed in her mind. Scenario: the invasion of Earth. Your greatest fear, being helpless while your world burns. Maya watched as refugees streamed past her, their faces twisted in terror. She could hear the screams of dying animals, feel the heat of the burning forests. Every survival instinct told her to run, to hide, to save herself. Instead, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath of the smoke-filled air. "You're trying to break me," she said to the AI. "But you don't understand humans very well. This isn't my greatest fear, it's my greatest motivation." The scene shifted, becoming more intense. Now she was in the midst of a refugee camp, surrounded by the wounded and dying. The aliens advanced methodically, their weapons systematically destroying everything in their path. "Your species is primitive," the AI stated. "You have no defense against this level of technology. Accept your helplessness. Submit to your fear." Maya laughed, the sound echoing strangely in the simulated world. "You still don't get it. Humans have never had the strongest defenses or the best weapons. But we've survived every catastrophe our world has thrown at us. Not because we're the strongest, but because we never, ever stop adapting." She began moving through the camp, organizing the refugees, showing them how to use the burning forest to their advantage. How to turn the smoke into cover, how to use the terrain against the invaders. Just as she'd taught countless students to turn survival situations into opportunities. "Interesting," the AI noted. "You refuse to accept the scenario's hopelessness. Increasing fear stimulation by 300%. The world twisted again. Now Maya was alone, the last human alive, watching Earth's final city fall. But instead of breaking down, she began to analyze the alien ships' attack patterns, noting their weaknesses, finding the rhythms in their seemingly unstoppable advance. "Just like tracking predators," she muttered. "Everything has a pattern. Everything has a weakness." The AI's voice held a note of frustration. "Your fear responses are not following predicted patterns. You should be experiencing psychological breakdown." Maya touched her grandmother's pendant again, feeling its familiar warmth. "Fear isn't just about running away. Sometimes it's about understanding what scares you, learning from it. Every survival situation I've faced taught me something. This is no different." She began walking toward the alien ships, noting how their energy weapons affected different materials, how their shields responded to various obstacles. Her mind catalogued every detail, just as she'd learned to read weather patterns and animal behavior in the wilderness. "Terminal scenario initiated," the AI announced. The simulation shifted one final time. Maya found herself in absolute darkness, completely alone, with no reference points or sensory input. Total isolation. The death of hope. But Maya smiled in the darkness. "I've been here before. Every survival instructor has. That moment when you're completely lost, when night falls and you have nothing but your training and your will to live." She sat down cross-legged in the void. "Want to know what I learned?" The darkness seemed to listen. "I learned that you're never truly alone. Everything connects. Every challenge teaches you something, makes you stronger. Even this darkness, it's not my enemy. It's just another teacher. Suddenly, the simulation collapsed. Maya found herself back in the white sphere, standing exactly where she'd started. The door opened, revealing the astonished faces of the tournament officials. Impossible, one of them stammered. The neural challenges, you didn't just survive them. You learned from them. Maya stepped out of the chamber, noting how the other contestants stared at her with a mixture of fear and respect. The ZXTH floated forward, its energy patterns displaying intense curiosity. Your mind, it said, it doesn't work like the others. You don't fight fear, you embrace it, understand it, use it. That's what Earth taught us, Maya replied, checking her gear out of habit. Every blizzard, every flood, every natural disaster, they weren't just challenges to survive. They were opportunities to learn and adapt. As she walked back to her preparation chamber, Maya could hear the officials furiously discussing her performance. She had done more than survive their ultimate psychological test, she had turned it into a learning experience. The neural challenges were designed to break contestants by exploiting their fears. Instead, she had demonstrated humanity's greatest strength, the ability to learn and grow stronger from what should destroy them. In her chamber, Maya began preparing for the final trial. Tomorrow, she would face the defending champion, a being engineered to be the perfect warrior. But now the galaxy was beginning to understand, humans didn't need to be engineered for perfection. The final arena was a masterpiece of engineering, a vast chamber that could reconfigure itself in real time. Maya stood at her entrance point, watching the defending champion through the energy barrier. Commander Vex of the Andromeda Empire was a sight to behold, 3 meters of cybernetically enhanced perfection, their silver skin rippling with embedded quantum processors and neural enhancers. The final trial will test all aspects of combat and survival, the tournament AI announced. The arena will shift through multiple environments. No restrictions on methods or equipment. Victory requires either submission or incapacitation. Maya checked her gear one last time: knife, paracord, fire starter, water tablets, and her grandmother's pendant. The ZXTH appeared beside her, its energy form pulsing with what she'd learned to recognize as concern. Vex has never lost a match, it said. They are a perfect fusion of biological and technological evolution. Every move they make is calculated with quantum precision. Maya smiled, adjusting her boot laces. Perfect isn't always better. Sometimes it's the imperfections that save you. The barrier dropped. The final trial began. Vex moved with impossible speed, their enhanced body covering the distance between them in milliseconds. But Maya was already rolling, not where their quantum calculations predicted, but where her instincts told her she needed to be. Her years of reading animal movement and predator behavior gave her an understanding that no computer could match. Interesting, Vex said, their voice a harmonious blend of organic and synthetic tones. Your movements don't follow standard combat algorithms. That's because I'm not fighting, Maya replied, continuing to move in unpredictable patterns. I'm surviving. There's a difference. The arena shifted, becoming a dense jungle environment. Vex's enhanced sensors immediately mapped every tree, every branch, calculating optimal attack vectors. But Maya saw something different. She saw resources, opportunities, natural advantages that no computer would think to catalog. Using her paracord, she quickly created a simple pulley system in the trees. As Vex launched another lightning-fast attack, Maya used their own momentum against them, redirecting their perfect form through a series of swinging vines and branches. Impossible, Vex stated, their quantum processors struggling to analyze her tactics. Your primitive technology should not be able to counter my enhancements. The arena shifted again, this time to a rocky desert landscape with geothermal vents. Maya immediately recognized the pattern of heat signatures, just as she taught her students to read thermal currents in canyon lands. You know what the problem is with perfection? Maya asked, leading Vex through a complex path between the vents. It makes you predictable. Nature isn't perfect, it's adaptable. She struck the ground with her knife in a precise pattern, just as she had during the environmental trials. The vibrations triggered a cascade of reactions in the geothermal vents. Steam erupted in a sequence that no computer could have predicted because it followed the chaotic patterns of natural systems. Vex's enhanced reflexes couldn't compensate. Their perfect calculations were based on ordered systems, not the beautiful chaos of nature. Steam clouded their sensors, heat threw off their thermal readings, and the unpredictable ground movements disrupted their balance systems. The arena shifted one final time, becoming a perfect white plain, nowhere to hide, no environment to use. Vex's systems recalibrated, their confidence returning. Now, they said, no more tricks. No more primitive tactics. Just pure combat efficiency. Maya stood her ground, her grandmother's pendant catching the light. You still don't understand. Every environment teaches us something, even this one. She took a stance that looked deceptively simple. Sometimes the biggest lesson is knowing when to be still. Vex attacked with everything they had, their body becoming a blur of perfect strikes and calculated blows. But Maya moved like water, like wind, like all the natural forces she'd spent her life studying. Every attack flowed around her, through her, past her. How? Vex demanded, their systems beginning to overheat from the exertion. My calculations are perfect. That's exactly the problem, Maya said, still moving with that fluid grace. You calculate. I feel. You compute the perfect angle for every strike. I listen to the rhythm of movement, just like reading the patterns of waves or wind. With one final, perfectly imperfect movement, Maya used Vex's own momentum to send them crashing to the ground. Their enhanced systems, pushed beyond their limits trying to calculate the incalculable, finally overloaded. The arena fell silent. Then, slowly, Vex began to laugh. I understand now, they said as their systems reset. All this time, we thought we had evolved beyond nature, beyond the primitive struggles of survival. But you never forgot those lessons. Maya helped them up, a gesture that caused murmurs throughout the watching crowd. Earth never let us forget. Every time we think we've mastered nature, it reminds us that we're still part of it. The tournament AI's voice echoed through the arena. Final trial complete. Earth's representative is victorious. The galaxy acknowledges humanity's place among the elite warrior species. But Maya shook her head. Not warriors, she corrected. Survivors. Teachers. Students of the greatest instructor of all, the universe itself. As the ceremony concluded, representatives from dozens of worlds approached Maya, not with fear or awe, but with questions. How did humans read natural patterns? How did they turn survival into adaptation? How did they learn to embrace imperfection? Maya smiled, touching her grandmother's pendant one last time. The old stories had been right, the greatest test wasn't about proving humanity's strength to the galaxy. It was about teaching the galaxy what humanity had learned through millions of years of survival on their beautiful, deadly world, that true strength comes not from perfection, but from the endless capacity to learn, adapt, and grow stronger from every challenge. Earth wasn't just a death world. It was the greatest classroom in the galaxy, and its children had finally graduated to become the teachers.